Wait, hold up. Let's start. Yeah.
Okay, I'm posting social media, so hopefully we get an influx of people.
I'll be back in like 2 minutes. I gotta see what my dog is going for.
Okay, and it is, and there we go. And let's see how this. Ooh, it's well, that could just be my.
You're talking about the slow?
Yeah, it's a little glitchy.
Hiccupy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
How bad?
I mean, I can't hear it, so I don't know if it's just the video that's glitchy or if it's Lexta, welcome. Hey, Baka, how you doing? How is hopefully everything? Hopefully everything is working well, and it's not too glitchy. Ooh, I'm getting red. I'm getting all over the board here. It's working. Okay, good. Because my yeah, even said it's the kilobytes per second is just really high, but the you know that color bar that's right next to it, it's like going all over the place. So I may need to.
The audio sounds pretty fine.
Okay, that's the main thing in this.
Yeah. I mean, I was only
working?
hearing
Okay.
you, but, so.
Hey, thank you for the subscription there, Lexta. I really appreciate it. Always welcome new meat. That was a really bad thing to say. We're gonna have some fun tonight. This should be interesting.
Well, let's see.
It's gonna all you need to do is listen. You don't have to participate. I'm not gonna force anybody.
Okay, I got mine online, so I think we're good.
All right.
You motherfuckers can hear me now, right?
Oh yeah, we could before.
No, I know you guys could. For some reason, when I was trying to get my OBS to function so that it would work on Twitch, it was like, no.
Hey, Missy. My subs are probably in bed by now. Rob, oh my God, it's about goddamn time you come back, man.
Your subs are in bed at 9 o'clock.
Well, apparently all my subs are like in preschool. I don't know.
Say all your subs are like in their 80s.
Yeah. So yeah, they are in bed because it's after Wapner.
They're in bed because they can't get out of bed.
I've been in this bed for 65 years. So yeah. Wow. Okay.
Excuse me, bitch.
Did you just say excuse me?
Yeah, Sarah's got me stuck on it. Stupid dice cosplay bullshit. Excuse me.
Wow. Okay.
You're just mad because you think the King Dice cosplay is sexy.
Hey, somebody did something. I don't know what you guys did, but thanks for doing whatever you did, because I heard the ding.
Okay, I'm gonna try something. Maybe it'll help. Because I really. Because I think that video in the background is kind of messing with everything. It's 18:59 for me. Hey Jackie.
It's 2018 for me.
We're in 2018. Welcome from the 1800s. No, I know. I can't do military time. I've never been able to convert it just like off the top of my head. So honestly,
it's always whatever the number is minus 12.
So it's 6:59.
Well, now it's 7.
Okay, let's see if this helps any. Let's see if that helps. Oh yeah! Okay, fantastic.
Hey, do you guys know how to make the Discord overlay go away?
Discord overlay?
The
Settings.
Discord overlay.
Go to
Oh.
overlay and disable it.
Wait, hold on. So Discord.
Go to Discord settings. Go to overlay.
Set
then
user
just-
settings overlay.
Hit enable game.
Hello,
overlay.
Shadow.
Oh, I got
Oblivious. Welcome to the
Okay.
fray. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, no
Yep.
problem.
All right. Hey, Val.
Whoops. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, now I think we're in
Ooh, maybe,
business.
maybe not.
Hey, Caliber.
Okay, we got some good folks going on in here.
Shame. Shame.
I guess I
Shame.
can move over much. Actually, let me do that.
All right.
Oh, we're gonna play Overwatch in dead silence.
Yes.
Let's see how this goes.
All right. I think we can start the fray here. And so let's cue it in. Hey everybody! I don't have an intro animation yet, so you'll please bear with me. Hi. Welcome to the very first issue of Mad Murphy Live. I am Murphy, the old man, and I am mad, as you can see right below me. We are going to be discussing some things, but first I got my whole spiel that I like to get done, and I have to read this, so please bear with me. I am old. So yes, welcome to the very first live stream panel issue of Mad Murphy, where I and my panelists take a few topics that are pissing us off and simply rant about them. We are no way experts on these topics. These are simply going to be our opinions based off of what we've seen, read, and heard. And if anything we have to say angers you, just get the fuck over it. If you wish to join in on the conversation, just add your comments, or please, please add a comment to the live chat as we discuss the active topic, and we may even bring that comment into the conversation. We're not going to be talking to anyone who's going to be tossing around insults, because we really don't have that kind of time on us. So after my initial thoughts, I'm going to open up the floor to my panelists, and they are going to discuss everything. Let's see, open up the floor to my panelists who have joined me here tonight, and depending on how much I agree or disagree with what they're saying, I will give them points or take away points. At the end of the discussion, the panelists with the most amount of points for this discussion will be deemed the winner and will win the praise and admiration of us jerk-offs. So, tonight, I was originally planning on having everyone's webcam up, but my computer's a little so we're just doing this as best we possibly can. This is new, so there's going to be a lot of hiccups and a lot of roadblocks that we're just gonna have to stumble our way through. So I'd like to introduce my panel right away. We have from the depths of hell that I have no idea where the hell he comes from. Apparently there's dogs present. We have TalesofTim. Hi Tim. How you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, that's great. We have one of my oldest friends that I've known since I've started here in Creepypasta, Gentleman Raven. He also goes by Creepypasta Raven, all that good shit. How you doing, Raven? Thanks for tuning in. His microphone is off. I don't know why his microphone is off. He's not paying attention, but that's all fine and dandy. He's not going to get any points anyway. Next we have the dynamic duo of AutumnIvy and Twin Skeletons. Hello, ladies.
Hey, Lord knows.
Hey.
This is the crossover.
Well, okay. Hey. Yeah, we're here. We forgot to mute Sarah's bullshit, so here we are.
It's all good. It's all good. And last but not least, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Creepypasta, how you doing, Blue?
Hey.
Well, thank you. Wow, fantastic. Now you'll notice they all have numbers next to their names. If they have a talking point that I agree with, I will give them points. If I don't like what they're saying, I will take those points away. And that's how the whole show is going to work. If you've ever seen the sports analyst show Around the Horn on ESPN, that's kind of how this whole thing's going to work. So let's just get into the talking point for this evening. The failure of modern horror. I brought up the discussion of what we could possibly talk about to some of my panelists here, and we all wanted something that was topical yet non-controversial. So we decided on some common ground: horror movies and how most of them today suck dead donkey dick. Hollywood has completely lost their fucking minds, and I say that because they used to have one. The silver screen is no longer about fantastic content. It's all about the silver. How much money can we squeeze out of some of these useless sacks of shit? And when we run out of immediate ideas, we'll just regurgitate what's already out there. The actual movie isn't what's important anymore. It's the marketing and the merchandising. I could film a runny dump in a rest stop toilet for 2 hours, and if I could make an action figure out of the turd, I could easily make $1 million. Now, this concept spans across all cinema. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but when you think about it, how many movies are made a year versus how many have you actually wanted to see or have seen? That's the issue that we're talking about. But to even narrow... you wait your turn, motherfucker. But to even narrow that down even more, we're just going to be focusing on horror films, or as I like to refer to them in this instance, the piece of corn in that dump you left at the rest stop. Horror, like comedy, is difficult. And this can easily branch off into my argument about the difference between horror and gore, because they are not the same thing. Oh, they're cut from the same cloth, but they are two separate animals and need to be treated as such. Gore is an instant jump scare. Horror drags you by the nostrils and frightens your soul long after the movie is over. For example, to this day, I still have a fear of open water and clowns because of Jaws and Poltergeist, respectively. But when you think of fantastic horror movies as of late, there are few that stand out in the sea of fright. Off the top of my head, The Babadook, Insidious, Sinister. I could consider Blair Witch Project to be a great groundbreaker for found footage horror, but it was watered down with a flood of copycats and mindless sequels. But too often the studio just wants something that's fast, quick, easy, because we as a society have a very short attention span. Now think about classic horror movies. Jaws, Poltergeist, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist. At what point in the movie do you begin to curl under the covers? Like halfway or 2/3 through the movie. Our minds nowadays would have shut all that shit off long before the first commercials and yelled at the screen, boring. So to circumnavigate that, we have cheap, gory thrills that'll keep you hooked no matter how fucking stupid the plot is. So here's where I turn it over to my panelists. Is this a Hollywood issue? Is it Hollywood not trying anymore? Is it a society thing where we just can't tolerate a proper horror build? What is there to say about modern horror and the failure that it is? And go.
You've said many things there that I want to debate.
Go right ahead. No, seriously, go right ahead. This is what it's all about.
Okay. Well, like, I guess the main question that you have is that if it's a Hollywood issue or is it a society issue? Mm-hmm. Or I suppose in like a broader sense, is it the development of society that ends up leading towards what you believe to be the failure of horror films today? Or I suppose by extension, the failure of film today. And it's a society thing. Definitely. What you're discussing is like why Hollywood does what it does, specifically regurgitating past ideas or trying to stick to a formula that they are aware worked at one point in the past and it's cheap to do. So when you're talking about doing anything with horror in general, like horror is your go-to for things that are cheap and easy to do, which is why horror films are not meant to be blockbuster summer films. It's just they don't do that.
Well,
They're not going to be like a large action film.
Well, I have
comedy
seen
film.
a couple. I think the last. I mean, both you and I have a fear of open water. I don't know if it's because of Jaws, but that was a summer blockbuster.
Well, yes, but that's not a modern horror film.
That is true. That is true.
I think what he's getting at is that back then, since you're old, that was a blockbuster. But now with the way that things have gotten and the way that they've kind of sunk into that formula that he's talking about, that cannot be recreated. Like Jaws there can't be another Jaws, another summer horror blockbuster like that, because people aren't programmed that way anymore.
Oh, I mean they can. I mean The Purge still fits into that genre. It's a summer blockbuster film that is an action horror film. But I mean, in most cases, horror is intended to be cheap and easy to do. I mean, and plus that's Steven Spielberg, so it's
Don't get me started on him.
Actually, bouncing off of that point, you also have to think about the idea that as time goes on, technology gets better and we're able to create more things, like in a quicker span. So we might not even be talking about the failure of horror. We might actually be talking more about
The failure of Hollywood.
the flood of horror that makes the good stuff hard to find.
No, when I was in college and I was taking a film course, my teacher told me don't get into horror because all horror is a cash grab. You can make a horror film in just like the span of summer. That's it. It's
but okay, hold on. Because some horror movies are not required to take place in more than one room. Like I've seen plenty of horror films that literally took place in maybe all of 2 locations, one of which was comedic horror, and it was a film called Low. And I shit you not, that movie literally took place in what had to have been a black box theater, and they pulled it off beautifully. So I don't agree with you saying that it's necessarily a cash grab. I mean, just like anything else, it's an art form. It just depends on how it's executed.
Of course. Well, it does take a lot of
grab
skill, whatever. You know what I mean?
It can be a cash grab based on the idea that, like, the same way you talked about the Blair Witch Project is a very cheap film to make. It can make a lot of money.
Or like
it can make a
Paranormal
lot of money, built off of that. And this doesn't mean cash grab in a negative sense, but it is an effective way to make money using cheap movie making techniques.
If you look at modern horror now, it compared to back then when it was more inventive, now most modern horror and pretty much most any movie follows if you break it down to its bare bones, it follows a pattern of person A gets involved in some dangerous thing with person B, thing C does something to person A or B, and then we have this huge conflict and then a resolution.
That's a terrible way of going at it, because that's pretty much describing every movie ever.
That's what I said.
Like, I'm just saying, like, what he's talking about doing is talking about formula. But I mean, in general, Hollywood has to stick to formulas these days because budgets become, as the development of film, like we were saying, the development of film and the development of technology has gone so far, film becomes very expensive to make. Like, it's very expensive to make a movie. And if you want to talk about the amount of risk that anybody takes putting millions of dollars into a film to make something, they want a guarantee that they were going to make something back.
That's the thing right there, is that, back in the day, I mean, they gambled on a lot of stuff, and that's you get a lot of magic when you gamble like that.
Yeah, but it's not back then. Now we have Netflix and smartphones and YouTube and Twitch and Mixer and Amazon and Hulu and all these other ways to go see entertainment. We don't have to go out to see movies.
Yeah,
back in television. Like in the early 2000s even, the way that you would go check to see what's playing in the movie theater, what I wanted to go do this weekend, I would look at a newspaper. And then I would see like, okay, what's showing in the theater right now? Well, that looks like something I can go do because there's literally nothing else for me to do but stay home, watch TV, play video games, or go socialize. So at this point, I can go see a movie because that's one of my very few options.
Yeah.
As it is today, we have so many more options to consider. And like, I don't have to go see a movie, so they have to find a way to make me want to go see a movie now, which is to give me something familiar, which is why we get all these remakes. There's the remake now coming out of Halloween is because people know Michael Myers.
For like the fourth fucking time.
Yeah, people know Michael Myers, and they went to go see him before, so they'll go see him again, just to see if it's good. Like, that's the idea. They have to do that now because there has to be something to try to make money.
I think that's where, though, that a lot of creators have taken away that aspect of what horror really is. Because, like, you can sit down and you can watch an American horror film side by side with an original foreign film, right? So, shit, what is the name of that vampire film? Let the other one, let the other one in, I think. There's, like, a subtitle. The Americans changed the title of it. So, yes, let the right one in. So the correct one was Let the Right One In. But that's a prime example. That film, as a foreign film, originally, was beautifully done. It was fantastic. But then America took it over and was like, yeah, guys, we're going to remake it and we're going to see what happens. And then they fucked it up because they changed a lot of the core aspects of what that film was made to be originally. So I feel like you stated, okay, yeah, I don't disagree with the concept of it being necessarily a cash grab, which is unfortunate because it loses its art. We get so obsessed with driving it forward to be like, okay, what's gonna make people talk so that we can, create money generation, or like what can we make to go viral commercially so that they get interested in this. It's just like the one where the chick was banging her head against the web camera. That was
that Unfriended or something?
Or makeup? Like that? No, that was for like a makeup commercial or whatever, I think.
No, but that's my point.
It was no, the thing that Autumn is talking about was created by a dude, and it wasn't really advertising anything except something that was going to be done later and then never happened.
Never actually happened.
They never actually made it.
Yeah.
But my point comes to stand that things like that are what we are driven to in this day and age versus something that originally passed as a classic horror film monster like Freddy. Freddy's a prime example. Freddy's my man. Like, Freddy back in the day used to scare the shit out of people because of the fact that they had no control over their dreams. The concept of losing control in a dream and dying in real life if you died in your dream, that whole old school adage was like, it was insane, but it was a basic concept.
Now, with Freddy though, the whole idea of Freddy came from an actual real life event that actually happened. That's one of the cool things.
Hold on. Let me ask you, what story have you heard? Because there's 10 different concepts of how it came to be.
Of when when the Wes Craven was writing Freddy. That he was, I think he was like in Africa or somewhere or something. I don't remember that country. But there's like, he had heard the story like kids like having like nightmares or whatever, and then they would like wake up, refuse to sleep, and that would cause them to die because they were too tired to go to sleep. And when they finally went to sleep, they just died.
Okay, so it's funny that you mentioned that because that's only one of like 70 different things.
Yeah.
Wes Craven wrote it specifically based off of nightmares, and some of them were nightmares that he had as well, which was where the concept of New Nightmare came from. Is that it was written literally, Wes Craven played himself to explain kind of like, hey, like, you don't understand the evil that goes into this. The beauty of like the drop behind Nightmare on Elm Street is the fact that it is literally your own beliefs and your own like concepts that create what inherently kills you.
It's just like Silent Hill.
Belief.
Silent Hill being
Silent
your own
Hill is
personal
very, very
hell,
similar.
yeah.
I would say also when Freddy Krueger came about was actually a very kind of golden age for talking about like slasher films, these slasher killer monsters that could be able to come out at the time. Like, there's a reason why slasher films don't work anymore today. And that's because that exact same idea, when Hatchet was made to say that it was a throwback to the original horror slashers, and they tried to make a emulation, like a textbook emulation slasher movie, it became like an underground kind of cult film where there was a gathering of people that did appreciate it for what it was. However, nobody really cared about it in the grand scheme. And that's because it always felt like it was something that people had seen before, even though it was something new, because they can expect what's going to happen in a slasher movie. It's like we always assume we know what's going to happen in a haunting film. This is just generally we end up we'll desensitize ourselves, especially like everybody who's here who consumes horror in a really large amount. It's really hard to find a movie that's scary. It's not really scary anymore. It can be interesting. It's not really scary. Just because we desensitized ourselves to seeing it so much. Like you look up, war images and things like that. Eventually, you're going to end up, when you end up seeing images of people, it's just, oh yeah, I've seen this. Yeah. It's just a way to desensitize yourself. Yeah. And we've done that a lot to things we consider to be classic horror. There was a thing where we had talked about gatekeeping, how we do a lot of gatekeeping when it comes down to classic horror. Whenever we see a new killer, we always associate it with Michael Myers. We also always associate it with Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, because these are the things that we've always said that is what things are scary, because those scared us when we were younger. And new things can't scare us, so we always have to associate it with that exact thing. It's the the same way that if anybody watches anime, and people will always associate like, yeah, this is really cool, but Dragon Ball Z was always my favorite. Even though I'm not going to say that Dragon Ball Z was not good, it just means that there are other things that can surpass it. It's just we always hold on to our favorites and those things that we have been gatekeeping for so long.
Go ahead.
Going off of like the whole serial killer slasher thing, what you can see that Hollywood's doing now, because we're so used to having the horror like right there in our faces. Hollywood has started to kind of like hide the killer. Like look at the recent Chucky movies. Before, we would be like with the original Chucky movie, you were right there. You saw the killer, you saw him die, you saw him become Chucky. In the newer Chucky, not the second one, but the second new one, but the first new one, you didn't see that. You didn't really know that until like towards the end of the movie. Same thing with the Jason movie, the new Friday the 13th remake that they recently did. They did an homage to that one, but like after that, we didn't see or hear of Jason until towards near the end of the movie.
To be fair, though, but they did that in a lot of recent horror films too. If you think about Cloverfield, you didn't actually see the Cloverfield monster until the end either. But it's almost like they're trying to use that as a leveraging system. The problem,
Godzilla,
or Godzilla. We didn't actually see Godzilla until the ass end of that film, but. Something else I would like to bring up in the topic as well is think about what scares you personally. Yeah. Each person is going to be affected by a different form of fear, which is another thing that I really appreciate about films, that directly discuss your bringing about your terrors, your live fears, is that it's subject to you. So much like Silent Hill is a specific to your personal demons, a film that would address your personal fears would also cater to you. The problem is that you could have somebody who's like, I don't give a shit about serial killers, but goddamn, you put me in a room with a spider that's like half an inch long and shit, I lose it, I'm gone.
No, I totally agree with you on that one.
So we all know jump scares, and how they're used in horror today. And there's like the thing that appears and a loud hit of noise, and you're expected to jump, and most of the time you do because that's what humans do. And you see a lot of that, like more and more in horror. And one of the reasons you see a lot of that is because it's something that works. And the people creating these movies, these horror movies, will always lean toward what works. And that hurts horror because it replays the same thing, and like Spike was saying, you just get used to the same thing over and over again. So the jump scares nowadays, they're just jump scares. They're almost a joke.
I was gonna say there's a difference actually. So when you're working on horror films, there's two different kinds of jump scares that we usually end up blending together whenever we discuss it. So there's called a false scare, and a false scare is whenever nothing is taking place that's scary whatsoever, but we get that sudden loud sound and that sudden loud hit that really just makes you jump all of a sudden. And those are the things that actually are very, very cheap. And those are things, like you said, those are ones that Hollywood will try to use because we know they work, and they're unrelated to the scene. As much as I love the new It movie, there was one scene in it that I kind of thought was really cheap. That was when at one point, Bev is turning to leave the bathroom, and all of a sudden we see Pennywise at the door, when it was not related to, like, there was a very tense scene, but we weren't remembering the clown whatsoever, which is probably the point of it, was that it came out of nowhere. But the sudden jump scare of it being there was considered to be what's a false scare. If you think about like an Alien, when we can see, I think it was the Queen in that one. It was the first or the second one.
The second one was
as
the
it's
Queen.
slowly getting closer to slowly getting closer to Ridley's face, and then that mouth jumps out just an inch away from her.
Oh no, that was Alien 3. That's when it happened.
Was that 3?
Yeah, that was in 3, where she was in a bathroom. Yeah, and
that's it.
It's
and
like the thing is like that far. I mean, like just a couple inches away from her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a horror, and it's a tense situation where we're aware of what's going to happen, and we become fearful of what the outcome will be. And then when it gives you that quick jump sound, because we already anticipate it to happen, is really what a jump scare is supposed to be. But those are harder to write.
Yeah.
So here's something I'll bring to attention, and this is not actually film related. This is video game related, and the reason I bring it up is because video games also are suffering from this. I had this discussion with somebody earlier. I think it was either today or yesterday, about how we aren't really getting any good horror titles anymore because we're so like the gamers, for example, are so bent on like we want what we had before that they're not really giving anything new much of a chance anymore. So like for example, Kojima presents Death Stranding and everybody loses their shit and they're like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but goddamn, I want it. And then you go back to something like the rehash of RE2. Everybody already played RE2. Yeah. We already know. But yet we have this desire to do it again, even though we know a lot of the jump scares and things are going to be the same. Now, here's my counter to that and why I brought it up originally. When I played the original Fear, right? Fear, the very first one was a very solid game in my opinion. The reason being is they pulled some stuff out of their ass that I had not seen in a game that was due for that type of scare factor, which a lot of the time was jump scares. So for example, in a typical horror game, they put you in a corner, make you go look for armor or something, you turn around, you expect to see the antagonist, right? Or like the monster. I had a scene when I was playing Fear where I crawled up into this cavern, like an air duct area that was broken, you know what I mean? And I was looking for armor and shit, and I was like, all right, well, I'm expecting this little girl to show up, right?
Yep.
And so as I'm like crawling to the backside of the vent, nothing's happening, and I'm like, okay, this is weird, but maybe when I turn around, because you had to climb up a stair thing to get, or up a ladder to get there. So I grab the armor, I grab my equipment, I turn around, nothing, still, and I'm like, maybe I was wrong, but I can hear the music kind of humming in the background. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is that supposed to be there? And it makes you question it. And that was honestly the very first time in a video game that I can remember actually being kind of uneasy because nothing was happening. And I was like, all right. So I crawled forward, got to the edge of the staircase, and expected him to look over the side in the cinematic and see her face there. Still nothing. So he's like, all right, cool. So my character goes to climb down. He like adjusts and you see the frame of the ladder, and then he looks up and you see the ledge of the lip of the crawl space, right? And he goes to like move his head back to start the cinematic to crawl down. And as he looks back up into like the ceiling area, her fucking face is hovering right above. And he falls and drops and hits the ground. I have not thrown my controller harder. I was so fucking mad.
I think what it breaks down to is that paranoia is basically the new fear. when it comes to video games or movies. It's not actually being afraid anymore. I find that the most success that we see, whether it's in games or movies, is if you walk away looking over your shoulder or you can't sleep. But it doesn't seem, at least in my experiences anymore, like you're actually afraid of something, more so just being paranoid of something, like what's there, what if, what that type of deal.
Well, the
I've
problem
noticed-
with horror movies these days is the same problem that's with normal movies these days. It's that the stuff that's being created is being created to get as many eyes watching them as possible, instead of to create that experience. And movies that are being created to make that experience, like Babadook and It Follows, and
Which was just an STD film, but keep going.
right, yeah.
With films like
all of those movies, they're designed, they were made to make you feel something. And all of these big ones, like even the Insidious stuff, I mean, I have opinions on it, but whatever. But a lot of the recent movies, they're just designed to get people sitting in that seat and watching it.
Well, I mean, with the films like fuck, I haven't seen a modern horror film in ages. But like with the Babadook and like As Above, So Below, they're not fast-paced films. They actually start out pretty slow. And a lot of the modern films nowadays, especially horror films, modern ones, want to get you into the scares right away without really building up to it. And with like the Babadook, I don't my oh, there we go. With the Babadook,
There's some build-up.
you're not. It builds up slow to the book, and then slow to actually seeing the creature, and then slow to the scare, and you still get that. You're so like entranced in it that you're like right there in the screen, waiting for something to happen. Whereas with like say one of the recent remakes of like Friday the 13th or the Nightmare Before Elm Street movies, you know that like, oh, it's gonna be Jason or it's gonna be Freddy. I want to see Jason Freddy. You're not there to see the actual movie. You're there to see the character.
Yeah.
So are you saying that that the people today watch something and they need to get to the scares faster instead of taking the time to actually go through the movie?
Yeah.
Is that
Not
what it is?
necessarily, but yes. What I'm
See,
basically
the
saying,
problem with that is, I think that is coming from the wrong place. I think
I
that
think-
a lot of people can very easily say that people don't have the attention span, but
I think
that's
you're
really
misunderstanding
kind of okay.
No,
Okay.
I agree with you, Tim, because that's
no, I get what Tim's saying. I agree with him as
talking
well.
about films even from the 70s. They would take you right to the scary bits. They would tease the scary bits at the beginning part of the film to let you know
Yeah.
this is going to be a horror film. I mean, like, hell, the original like we're talking about, like the original Scream movie opened up with a very tense scene. Like, you
Yeah.
know, this is
Oh, yeah,
not
yeah,
about
yeah.
like taking a time to build it up. It was
Well, I mean, the
about
original-
like, you're here to get scared. We're going to show you what we can do.
Well, the original Scream movie was a kind of like a joke kind of.
It was it was almost a parody of classic
parody
horror
of
movies.
horror.
That's
movies.
exactly the point, though. The
So
point
they
of
were-
it
they were
is that
kinda making fun of it.
was a parody of. Yeah, it definitely did make fun of it. But
Yeah.
it was about telling you the rules of how horror films work. It was about the formula.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
if
worked
we talk
that way
about
then.
the formula,
It-
from the very beginning in classic film up to that point in the 90s, there was from the very beginning, you have tension, you have murder. That's the way it starts.
I mean, but didn't the Scream movie come out because that they felt the formula that was happening during that time was starting to get stale and old and needed to be changed?
I think that was part of the give
Well-
of the movie. I mean, they made a point of it.
Yeah.
Okay, rule number 1 of all horror movies. I mean, the whole list that Randy had through that entire first movie is like, you know, never, you know, when you're in a group of people, never say you'll be right back. And then, you know, Stuart, he goes off and said, oh, you guys want anything? Okay, I'll be right back. And then everyone's laughing about it.
Cabin in the Woods.
Say that again?
Kevin was the same thing. They made fun of horror movies.
Yeah.
It was more of an homage
Well,
to it, so.
See,
That's exactly the point. It's not making fun of, it's an homage of. You can parody something and still pay tribute to it.
Yeah.
right, and I don't know, just the idea that an argument against for the fall of horror is that the people are trying to get to the scares quicker and everybody wants to see them faster. I think that's just like not the way to look at it, because even that is a symptom of the companies making these movies wanting to put as much as they can to get people in those seats.
But literally what it is, like, they want money, and the best way to get money is to make a movie that scares people well enough to an extent.
Well, I'm not even sure if it's about money.
It is totally with Hollywood. It's totally about money.
Yeah, with movies, it's totally
about money with Hollywood.
Yeah, it's still a business. That's there are people on set to ensure that the movie makes money.
But like, there's an extent to how far you go with your scare. Because if you make a movie that's too scary, and people start walking out from it, you're not really you're not making much money anymore. Because like, yeah, you got a few bucks from people that actually went and bought a ticket.
Okay, can I stop you right there and say
I'm gonna
no?
disagree with that because I mean this is gonna go back to classic.
I can name a movie that has done this and has worked. Okay,
I can name a movie that has advertised that they will do that.
Yeah. I mean, you look at. I mean, this is turning back the clock a bit. But I mean, with The Exorcist, people walked out because that movie just for some points, I mean, it just disgusted some people, and it was really,
okay.
There's a modern movie.
There's
actually
walked
came out last year.
But then with people walking out, they'll still tell people, "Oh my God, I walked out of that movie." And then someone says, "Oh well, now I have to see it because I want to know why he walked out of it." So it's kind of its own word of mouth, and you might be walking out because you're disgusted, but you're attracting 3 other people to go in and watch that movie.
I mean, okay, hold on. As somebody who speaks on movies that probably should have been walked down on, and trust me, I'm a fucking expert, there is a distinct difference between people walking out on a film because they're like, oh, that genuinely unsettled me, and actual, like, that was disgusting. I cannot actually legitimately watch this. So, for example, take into consideration Antichrist with William Dafoe. Antichrist was literally, realistically, a psychological horror film, and there is genital mutilation towards the end of the film. And it's like, not to mention they kill a kid within the first 5 minutes. They never actually show anything, but the point stands. That was a film where it was banned in some countries because of the content. Yeah. Versus something like, like you mentioned, The Exorcist. People walked out of The Exorcist because it was unsettling. They were like, oh shit. But it was also one of the first of its kind in that timeline. Yeah. Now, take into consideration one of Sarah's favorites, which she can talk about. The Possession of Michael King, right?
Yeah, The Possession of Michael King is a little bit different in that, well, first let me back up and say that I'm absolutely exhausted with possession movies. I feel like this is another one of those things that goes back to the point where they're following a formula that works. But The Possession of Michael King was really good because it focuses around a guy who had loss, right? And he's more or less blaming it on the paranormal in one way or another. I don't want to give away too much. Yeah. But what he does is he creates a blog and he starts going around doing, ritual after ritual, kind of different occult practices, trying to disprove everything for the blog, and
which turns out to be intentional provocation.
Yeah, and he ends up drawing something in that way. And then even then, the way that the possession is approached is a little bit different, and the plot line's a little bit different. But it's not just a typical, like, Joe Blow gets possessed by A because they touched a Ouija board. And I like it that way because I feel like if more people watch that movie, they would have more appreciation. But instead we have trash like Veronica on Netflix, which got all kinds of hype and was supposed to be like the scariest movie in the world for a while. And it was just another typical possession movie that was a waste of time.
Yeah. Right, but I mean, that was going to be my example, actually. Veronica was going to be my example to say that people would not walk out of, like, that's a huge selling point to say that your movie would make people want to walk out.
So I just want to clarify, the reason people probably walked out of The Exorcist was because of the religious ideas. And
well, I mean, there's a lot of different things about The Exorcist. I mean, there was the religious implications. There's an actual scene where Linda Blair is actually stabbing her vagina with a crucifix.
It's a Tuesday.
I was going to say, I just wanted to say also, Veronica was a terrible film. I just wanted to point out the fact that it made people want to see it based off the fact that it was advertised as unable to be finished.
There was a couple of
Right.
good ideas.
Which I would argue then is a cash grab.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, I mean, it's just clever marketing, but they knew
You're
how to
literally
market it.
fooling people into giving their money to watch something that's garbage.
I'm sure somebody who was not used to watching Exorcist films might have thought it to be interesting.
Yeah, but to be
Right.
fair, that goes back to the topic of what have we become accustomed to? You know, what are we now desensitized to? Like that, you literally just looped back the initial topic. So
Yeah.
my question, for example, is like, well, how do we take a topic such as vampires and we rehash it so it's not a shitty Twilight redo? Like
Don't
the
make
only
them
ones that
glitter. That's
30
the
days
first
to
thing.
well, no, and that's 100% true. But it's not just that aspect. Like there's a oh shit, is it Japanese or Korean? There's a foreign. I'm trying to think of it, and I don't remember, even though I love the fucking film. There's a foreign film that specifically addresses vampirism, and it does it beautifully. It's about a priest that actually goes to be intentionally injected with a disease so he can help try to find them a cure. So he gives himself to this disease to try to help others.
Oh, wow.
And what inherently happens is he gets, they do blood transfusions. And when he gets his transfusion, he gets transfused with what inherently becomes a, quote, virus, is what they consider it. But it makes him a vampire. And it's literally a love story gone horror. And it's beautifully done. But they took a you know, something that's been done over and over and over, and they gave it kind of a new life. You know, similar to how they did The Forsaken, where they considered it an actual viral infection.
Okay, so like here's the question for this then. Is it the fact that the film was scary, or was it that it told a good story that made it a good film?
To me, and I'm going to give my 2 cents on it, it's 100%. If I can appreciate the story behind the horror, I will appreciate the horror infinitely more, and it is no longer about the fear, much like the Babadook.
So in this case, what we're discussing is not really like the failure of where things become scary, because in that case, we're not really talking about jump scares. We're talking about why aren't better films being written.
Right.
That is also true. I mean, yeah, I mean, we could talk about the marketing aspect of the whole thing being that, you know, we're just, you know, just going to try to, you know, just hammer out all these cash cows so that we can, you know, if we hammer out 10 of them, at least 2 of them are going to, you know, bring back something or, you know, what have you. But yeah, that, I mean, I heard the phrase that, and it really pissed me off whenever I hear the phrase, oh, well, everything's already been done before. I consider that to be the laziest excuse I've ever heard in my entire life.
Okay,
I agree, and I'm going to just say that what it boils down to, for me at least, is intelligent writing does not appeal to the mainstream. If you have something that's more complicated to understand, even if it's a fantastic plot, that is literally too much for people.
Oh, well, enter the
Definitely.
void.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things that they said is like you can't when we're working on film scripts before is that you can't have your audience try to infer things from the film. The film has to actually tell your audience, you know, thing to the mass. You have to make sure that you appeal to everyone, because you if you're trying to if you're definitely trying to make something artistic or try to make a statement, then yeah, it has to be able to appeal to whoever your audience is. But if you want everyone to understand your film, you have to ensure that everyone understands your film. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to draw a conclusion. It would be like if they took the Sherlock Holmes movie and they took out all of his actual deductions. It would be like, well, we still showed you who the killer was. Yeah, but I don't get how he would have done it. Yeah,
that's right.
Most people wouldn't.
Tim wanted to say something. I want to make sure that he gets his thing in.
So I'm not so sure if we could call this a failure of horror.
Thank you.
And
I agree with you.
The reason I'm saying that is because things happen in cycles. So horror is great for a time. People love what's coming out and they really enjoy it. And because of that, the companies who are making the horror, they create more of the same thing. They copy the same styles and they just do that over and over again. And then horror like fades out, but it doesn't go away. It just fades out for a while until another really good horror movie comes along. and it's happened over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
I
So that-
totally agree with you on that.
That's just like any other rom-com. Like every single genre. Like, for example, we had a resurgence when Twilight hit, right? So the tweens got all kinds of Twitter pated, and I keep bringing that up because it is a shitty but great example of rotational.
Oh yeah.
Of rotational genre. So, you know, we had a resurgence, and then all of a sudden it was about romantic comedies, and then it was about raunchy comedies, and now, you know, we're coming back to a time where it's about
Comic books right now.
Right, superheroes and comic books. You can't tell me that the same fucking superhero story hasn't been rehashed 50,000 times, just like it has been in horror. Now, does that take away from the genre of superheroes as a whole? No, not really.
Well, I'm not saying that the stories are being rehashed. I'm saying that the formula forces innovation only when it is unpopular.
That's not true at all.
I actually I kind of agree with you, Tim.
It's
because everybody starts pulling out of the idea that allows for so many new, fresh ideas to be taken advantage. So, like Blumhouse does productions for a whole bunch of films, which means a whole bunch of films that are risky ideas, which means they have a lot of hits. They also have a lot of misses, which is also why they end up having so many things that are strange. We have things like Get Out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a horror film. But it's definitely not a horror film like other people would consider it to be. It doesn't really follow the same kind of rules as other horror films, but it's still very much a horror film. And it's one of those things where they want to take risks, which I suppose is what everybody is discussing as the thing that's missing from the horror genre these days. But I mean, like, that the reason why things like that opened up for them to take risks on is because larger mainstream studios kind of said, like, there's not a lot to do here, so we're going to explore other things. I think Tim is kind of correct, or kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's because it's not being diluted by what we consider to be the failure of horror, I suppose, that allows the genre to eventually flourish from new ideas.
Okay, I want to hear Raven's argument against that, because obviously you disagree. So I
do disagree. I disagree with the whole innovation doesn't happen unless it's like popular or whatever was said. Because like if we're talking like modern horror in general, but like modern horror in general, that's not true at all. If you go on YouTube and go to channels like Crypt TV, they do things that are innovative and that I haven't seen done in years.
That's true. I will give him that.
There's tons of channels literally on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and find tons of channels that are making innovative horror films for cheaper prices in Hollywood.
You're also taking into consideration that these are indie-related companies or smaller companies, rather.
Right, these are companies that can take the kind of risks.
But that's the thing, though. If they can take the risk, right, for a cheaper price, why can't Hollywood?
But Deadpool. Deadpool is a prime fucking example of. Not once did a company step forward and want to take a pull on Deadpool, right? Until Ryan Reynolds was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'll fund majority of it. I'm producer now. Watch me take this hat and this suit. Goodbye, fuckers. And he did. But and the thing is he took that risk knowing that he had passion behind it. The problem is that we don't have that in mainstream horror. We lost.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. I fully agree. It has everything to do with passion.
We lost that with Hollywood. And so and here's the thing, I follow Robert Englund like nobody's business, like Senpai Police.
It's borderline stalker what you follow with Robert Englund.
It's not. I mean, I hope to God that something doesn't happen and he doesn't watch this, because fuck. Anyway, so look, here's the thing. A lot of what I appreciate and what I respect the most about that man is that it does not matter what the project is. Here's somebody who took a 100%, obvious horror icon. He is Freddy Krueger. Mm-hmm. And he still does independent films. I've seen him in college films, like thesis films. I've seen him do really shitty films like Zombie Strippers, and then I've seen him do things like Night World. He was a fucking voice for the Riddler in Batman. So he took that passion that he had for what he did, and he was able to kind of circumvent the system. Was he ever super famous for it? No, but does everybody know who he is? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah.
But he took that passion and he ran with it, and that I think is what we're missing most. Not just in horror films, but in video games, in creepypasta bullshit. Like, it's everything.
That's the thing. Passion dies as things get more popular, and the only way, the real passion that you see when things become unpopular and you see these really incredible horror films just pop out of nowhere, it's because the people who are passionate stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That's true.
That's exactly it, Tim.
Yeah.
Like, I was gonna end up adding in that, like, when it comes down to like things that end up losing passion is again the fact that we kind of as people want to focus on things that are negative. When we think about like things being shitty in horror and modern horror, we kind of focus on a lot of the really bad things that failed that we can recall that happened recently. But that's not to say that there hasn't been, you know, still fantastic horror films that have come out recently, or things that at least critically so have been very high on the scale. I mean, one of the other things is that, like Murphy said, how many horror films have we gone to go see recently? Not very many. But on the flip side of that coin, how many have come out recently?
Exactly.
Like, there's not many that come out recently.
It's
And
always
even then,
it's the percentage of, you know, how many are made versus how many do you want to see or have you seen.
I know, but I mean, like Zombie Beavers, wouldn't consider a horror film that I was like, yeah, Zombie Beavers came out. I'm like, cool, I don't fucking care. But like, if it's, you know, like when somebody
I'm giving you a
discusses
point
that,
just for Zombie Beavers.
yeah, it's like, let's go ahead and talk about, you know, like, have you seen the next Purge movie? Like, no, I'm not super into that series, but I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, I've seen the Purge movie.
I know that, like, you know, like maybe by this point you're right. The Insidious films have grown way beyond what's acceptable from the series. But
They
the
have.
news comes out, and a lot of people still want to go see what the ending of supposedly Insidious is supposed to be.
Yeah, the same thing.
It's
With,
like-
the same thing with Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the very
Yeah.
first one in the
Paranormal
theater.
Activity's dead. It has been dead for 10 years.
Oh yeah, I
Okay,
mean, but I saw the
Paranormal-
very first
Paranormal
one. I saw
Activity.
the very first one in the theater, and I'm like, oh my god, this is fucking brilliant.
Really?
Paranormal Activity was not brilliant at all, okay?
I wasn't a
thought
big
it was-
fan of that film.
I thought it was fantastic just because I had no idea what the fuck was going on, and I still don't. But it scared the shit out of me because
So-
I'm not a fan of the film, but
it was two people
I can
that
just
were
say that, like-
terrified in their own house, and that.
So I've got two things. All right. So one is to take a topic a little bit backwards, and the second one is to bring up the fact that you guys are completely correct in talking about how like things like Paranormal Activity got popular because it was unsettling that this shit was happening in their home, and it's relatable because people have weird shit happen to them. Like period. Like you may not even know it's a weird thing, and some people take it to the next level. But you know, that's something that's relatable. Now on the other hand, Netflix, for example. Netflix is becoming a mainstream source of any kind of TV and entertainment or film or, you know, TV shows. The Void on Netflix is a fantastic example of taking an H.P. Lovecraft-based concept and flipping it on its head into something recent for new viewers. And it's granted, it's still kind of an underground level indie film, but the way that it was executed had people talking about it, and it is on a list of top 10 horror films to watch on Netflix because of the content. The other thing I was going to mention is we talked about like reasoning in horror films, right? Like the writers being too intelligent for the viewers. Rubber, actually. So Rubber is that shitty horror film. It's like horror comedy kind of, but it is literally about a killer tire. That's it. It's a rubber.
I have
Right,
to
just
stop you.
boom.
Rubber was a good movie. How dare you?
No, listen, I'm not knocking it. But it was horror comedy. Now, the reason I am not knocking it is because the very first 5 minutes of that fucking film, the monologue that the sheriff gives, is literally hands down one of my favorite things in the entire world. Like, I quoted it, people, for no reason, other than the fact that no reason is a reason, and that is literally the explanation for every horror film ever. Is like, why don't you ever see them go to the bathroom? No reason. Well, why didn't they take the left route that they knew was safe, and they clearly took the right route, which they knew the killer was down because they had just seen the shadow.
Because it wasn't in the script.
Because no reason, right? That's the beauty of what horror conceptually is, and I think people sometimes forget when they're trying to push it towards a mainstream avenue, is that, you know, people want answers. Well, I gotta know why. Back in the day, we didn't have to know why. We just knew there was some dude in a hockey mask killing kids in a cornfield. Nobody knew. As far as they knew, he was looking for a pig to fuck. Nobody knows.
Like, going by that explanation, what you've done is you've basically explained why in horror films or in the horror genre, we accept campiness to be charming. So, in other words, like, the reason why we accepted the Crypt Keeper to be charming was because of that exact reason. Like, yes, things just happen in horror. There's no reason. This guy is a corpse that's living in a crypt, and it tells me spooky stories, and he kills people sometimes, and he sometimes kills me, and that's okay for that to happen in horror. But that again is saying that, like, you know, things that are campy that happen in today's horror, things that we consider the things that made horror shitty, the fall of modern horror, for some reason we can't accept that anymore. We don't accept things being campy. Same thing I said about, like, earlier on about Hatchet. No, it's too over the top now. He wouldn't die like that. But we were okay with it before.
To go off that point, when I was younger and I was watching a George Romero interview, one of the things he brought up was, like, he gets asked, like, when he was alive, he got asked at cons a lot, like, what is the motive for the zombies? And he would always bring up, they're zombies. There is no motive. They want brains. That's it. Monsters don't need motives.
They just are.
You know, they just are.
But as human beings, we try to demand motives to create our, you know, attachments, I guess, to whether it's the antagonist or the protagonist. We have to have an attachment because that's what we are as human beings.
Yeah.
Also,
that emotional
finding
attachment.
something to eat is a motive.
You get the point, though, Tim. You
It
get the point. You don't have to fucking, you know.
I mean, it is a motive.
It is a motive, but you get the fucking point, Tim.
Things need a reason for happening. If they don't have a
They
reason
don't.
for happening, then there's no point in watching something.
They don't always
Yeah.
need a reason.
It's
Yes.
because
It's because you
Tim.
didn't get any protein in the morning. That's why they're looking
They're
for
hungry
brains
and
now.
going to get something to eat. That is a good enough motive anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm not even gonna get into the zombie topic. It's fucking. I
But
hate
but also, we are ignoring an entire avenue of discussion here because we're just talking about movies, and I don't know if this was specifically about films, but there is, like, internet horror. There is, like, comic book horror.
We only have 12 minutes
Holy
left. So
shit!
if you
Let's
wanna-
talk about motherfucking Judy.
Yeah, if you
Holy
wanna,
shit!
if you want to expand this, go right ahead.
Yo!
I'm letting you guys know we only have about 12 minutes left. So
Listen, motherfuckers. He's totally right. You want to talk about like hardcore fucking amazing original horror that's super unsettling, not just to, like, fucking the brain, but the eye, like, it's visually upsetting. Holy fucking shit. Junji Ito is fucking phenomenal. He's totally right.
Exactly. He's like the one good example. I mean, he's not the one good. There's probably more, but he is an incredibly good example for why horror is not failing.
Don't think horror in itself is failing. Like, bring George Romero again. One of my favorite quotes from George Romero is that horror is the genre that never dies. It will always change.
Oh yeah.
Somebody will always be afraid of something.
So,
I personally think though that
very
it's
true.
kind of.
have you guys seen what the concept, like Uzumaki, for example, spirals?
I know the concept, yeah.
So, Raven, when you get the opportunity, go to Google and look up Uzumaki and type in Junji Ito's name. And when you see the visuals, take into consideration the initial conversation we had about how it's subjective to the viewer on what is actually, like, horrific.
There's, I had a point, lost it.
You'll get it again.
Peanut butter, go Tim.
because you're a butthead.
I am.
Use a butthead.
Can't attack my person.
That's off topic. That doesn't count. We're adults here.
Yeah.
That's fine. We can
Are
be
we?
adults.
Are we
Alright.
adults?
No.
Okay. I think I think we're at a good point right now where, you know, we've hit a lot of really good stuff, and you know, it's not so much that, I mean, I mean, there's a we all agreed that the passion, if there was more of a passion, there we would have a bigger thing. But also, when we made the point that it'll come around again, and it always has. I mean, there's never a constant stream of one genre of film.
Can I just make one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't think it's so much them going for money. I don't think it's so much just doing the same thing and following a formula that's failing horror. I think it's more like the disconnect between the people creating the movies and the people watching them.
Yes.
I have to disagree.
Okay, Raven, and okay.
If we're talking specifically Hollywood, it is about the money. It will always be about the money. If we're talking,
but the money.
But I mean, yes, that the money. Yes, I also believe that there is a disconnect.
The money is the main issue, though. Without the money, you can't make the movie.
Well, you can have a company spend a lot of money and try to earn a lot of money, but know their audience, be understanding of what their audience wants to see, and know how to make a good horror movie, and it will be a phenomenal horror movie.
But the Hollywood producers have final say. If they don't like what's being produced by a director, they'll fire them on the spot.
Exactly.
That is true.
It's always about the money.
What if it comes?
Also,
eat my ass! I'll make it myself. Yeah.
Nothing will get greenlit unless it has a plan for making a profit.
Yeah.
Very true.
That's a really big thing about all films. Is you have to be able to pitch a movie that people can understand, that the producers can be able to understand, the studio can understand. Otherwise, it's just there's no way for them to be able to have it made, and they're always going to give their 2 cents to it as well. I like the idea that you have. However, I think this would probably be able to sell better than that. You want to talk about one thing? Talk about like the Slender Man movie. I'm still in major support of the Slender Man movie, and I think that anybody that wants to see more Creepypasta movies needs to see the Slender Man movie for them to take more chances. But the fact is, this is them taking a chance. And the only way they're going to be able to take that chance is if the studio gets a say in saying, I like it, but can we make it more like blank? I like that idea, but can we make it more like this? And if it makes money, then they'll come back to say, yeah, let's try it.
And that's the thing. That's where you're seeing the disconnect, because of the people that are in charge of the movies. They're not thinking about the audience, they're thinking about the cash.
That's exactly the point we've been making.
I will agree with I think a fantastic example. It was the Silent Hill movie. I thought just the concept of the original Silent Hill movie was just the game, the story with Harry Mason and everything like that. It was a fantastic story. I loved it. But then when they brought it to and every Silent Hill fan crawled out of the woodwork, and they were so, oh my god, this is gonna be great. And then we start hearing all these, I start hearing all these interviews like, well, when we read the story and we saw this, we realized that Harry Mason should really be a woman. And then it's just like, what the fuck? And then there was that disconnect. Yes, it was totally done that way to be a cash cow, but it pissed off a lot of people that were expecting, a Silent Hill film. And that's,
okay,
I honestly think that I should lose a point because of my disconnect thing, because I actually sort of agree with what Spike said.
No, it's both. It's both. I agree with both, that it's money and there is a disconnect.
So with Silent Hill specifically, though, I don't agree with you as far as the films are concerned. Like, the problem is Silent Hill is literally another example of being subjective. Like, it's each person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they took the concept of the original and first Silent Hill and kind of bred it into its own, but it was technically its own thing, because you follow who inherently becomes Heather in the second film as well.
Yeah.
But conceptually, it's the same idea. So it is in itself its own born and bred Silent Hill. So I wouldn't probably use Silent Hill as an example for that, just because it is its own.
The main reason I brought Silent Hill into this is because I mean, when you think about the first Silent Hill movie, I mean, there was the concept of, you know, the air raid sirens going off and then everything going dark and the fog coming in and then this world changing. And then that was the one thing about the original game that freaked me the fuck out. When is that going to happen next? Oh, when is all hell going to break loose now? And then just kind of like that, the really, you know, the dark corners and the skulking around and making sure that, you know, you have to watch out for, you know, these twisted creatures that are doing this, that, and everything. That was freaky for me. With the second game, when Pyramid Head came into the, and then that was a completely different element that was brought into the second game for its own specific reason. The movie, the very first movie, I thought they tried to put too many Silent Hill tropes all into one encapsulating movie, and I thought that's what ruined it for me. There was too much Silent Hill in one Silent Hill story.
I can agree with that.
I don't know. Like, Pyramid Head still served his purpose as being a manifestation of a need that God, I cannot think of her name at the moment.
Heather?
No, the woman that was in the Harry Mason role. I can't remember her name.
Rose?
What's his wife's name?
Rose.
Yeah.
Rose?
I don't think it wasn't a need of hers, but it definitely was still a manifestation. It was still literally rooted in somebody's psyche. It wasn't just, hey, here's a slasher monster that everybody really liked and we put it in here. It was a part of the story. He was still a part of the story.
Yeah, I just didn't. It didn't connect well. I mean, for my opinion, it just didn't connect well. I mean, I still watch the movie because I'm a fan of the games, and I'm like, oh my god, what is he gonna do, and this, that. But then, the more I really started thinking about it, there was a lot that was disjointed for me that didn't connect, and I didn't understand why. But that,
You know why? Because they took out all those deduction parts from the Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah, there you go.
Why are you like this?
All right, I think we're gonna call it right there. So final score. This was good. I actually, okay. So Autumn and Twin Skeletons are winners with 25 points. Second place, Mr. Creepypasta. Third place, Tim. Fourth place, Raven with 13. But no. I honestly thought this was a success. It was. I mean, everyone got their. I thought everyone got their time in, and it worked well. So, without further ado, I'm going to close it out. I want to thank all my panelists for being here tonight. TalesofTim, Gentleman Raven, AutumnIvy and Twin Skeletons, and Mr. Creepypasta. If you're not following them on social media, you have been living under a rock. So crawl under there. Crawl out from under there, because I mean, you guys are really behind at times if you don't know who these people are. If you
I'll just come under the rock with you.
There you go. If you've stuck around this long, I want to thank you for letting us air out all of our opinions and grievances. And believe me, we got lots of them. So we're just going to close out with the usual. You know what? These points don't really matter. So just, if you have, I don't know. No. What I have written down really doesn't fit in the format for this. If you have a suggestion for a topic that you would love to hear the panel's opinion on, and this might not be the same panel next time. I don't know when we're going to be doing this next time. It might be just once a month thing. But this is definitely something that I think is going to be sticking around for a while. If you do have a suggestion for a topic you would love to hear the panel's opinion on, please email me using my contact form at wellhey.com/contact. And just make sure the subject line is Mad Murphy Topics. As always, yes?
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that goes for the people listening on my channels right now, too. That does include you guys. You're more than welcome to hit up Wellhey Productions and poach some shit out. I know you guys can come up with some mean-ass topics.
There you go. As always, you can catch me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and YouTube. So, for everyone here, this is Old Man Murphy of Wellhey Productions, where we bring you colorful insanity to your drab, uneventful lives. Thank you for joining us. You guys have yourselves a great evening.